Hello and welcome to the Youth Academy Guide for FC26. Want to start producing wonder kids in your own save? You've come to the right place. But why should you invest time and effort into the Youth Academy? Well, besides the obvious financial benefits of selling players, generated players can provide a level of uniqueness into your save that can't be replicated with the real counterparts. In my own opinion, it is the best way to enjoy career mode, and by the end of this tutorial, I'm confident that you'll be churning out talented footballers at an impressive rate. Before we dive in, consider subscribing to the channel. It's entirely dedicated to the Youth Academy and career mode, with over a decade of breakout stars and disappointing flops. Our series at the start of FC26 will focus on Barnet, utilising the youth squad in the ultimate search for domestic and European glory. Before we get into our career mode save, we have a decision to make, controlling the rate of growth for senior and youth players. From my lower league experience, you want to set the senior players to fast and leave the youth players on normal. If instead you're playing with a top tier side from the get-go, I recommend not changing either setting. The reason behind this discrepancy will be explained during the video. Once you're in the saves menu system, navigate to the Youth Academy section. You'll already have a handful of players in your academy ready to go, but for clarity and simplicity in this tutorial, I'm going to release these guys and focus on one person specifically. Your first job should be to hire 3 youth scouts. One will already be assigned to the club, but their quality will vary depending on the ability and reputation of your team. If you've taken over someone really rubbish, then the scout is going to be really rubbish, so get them fired. What we're looking for are scouts with 5 stars in both judgment and experience. If you're working with less money and can't afford the best scouts, then take into account what experience and judgment do. I'll use the same analogy as I've used in the past. Think of this like a lottery or a raffle. More experience gets you more tickets, whereas better judgment makes every ticket more likely to win. If your priority is quantity over quality, experience is the way to go, and vice versa. Although both fairly useful, I have no preference. Sign up the scouts that fit for now, but replace them as soon as you can get a 5-star in place. Once your scouts are signed up, it's time to set up a scouting mission. For the most part, where you scout and what position is irrelevant due to how much quality the game offers you. There is back-end code that does vary the numbers, but it is such a minor difference that we're going to ignore it here. This tutorial is a beginner's introduction. I recommend watching Geographifa's deep dives if you really want to get super technical. What I can suggest to you is attempt to find players that fit into your tactical system. Players comfortable in certain roles will gain a boost in-game as a result. You might also want to consider keeping scouting missions to a minimum duration. That allows you to search loads of countries. Career mode now gives players the ability to search something like 150, 160 countries, so experiment and most importantly, enjoy your experience. Once the scouts have been sent on their mission, it'll take an entire month for them to return with their first reports. And this is where the fun part begins. You're looking for really high numbers right here. This number is the maximum potential a player can reach. Preferably, you're looking for this to be 90 or above. And no, that's not to say that the player will become a 90 overall, it just increases the chances of them to at least reach 80. That's a decent player for most big clubs. After all, this right here is a range, and it will change over time with greater understanding on the individual. It's important to know that youth players under 16 grow in height over the years, so don't worry if a 13-year-old comes in very short, as they'll grow before making it up to the senior team. The overall range located on the top doesn't need to be taken into account as much, unless the player is old enough to be promoted. In the case of high potential 16 and 17-year-olds, you want their overalls to be around 60 or above. Anything lower and the player is essentially playing catch-up. Sadly, with how this game's designed, that means that they usually don't reach their potential. But it's at this point that I'd like you to meet our test player. His name is Enzo Antunes, a 61 overall, 79 potential striker, right in the ballpark of what we've discussed so far. He's not a bad player, but he's also not pulling up any trees. However, applying all that is laid out in this guide will eventually actually see him turn into one of the world's best footballers. Which leads me on to this. If you are desperate for a certain position, I wouldn't completely disregard someone if they don't have optimal numbers. Better players obviously make your job easier, but with a little bit of care and a whole lot of patience, you can make any player become good. After all, this video is not about strict guidelines. It's more about giving you information that can lend you a helping hand. Now, weaker overalls can be boosted in the bi-monthly Youth Academy tournaments, so please make sure to play those all the time with the players that desperately need it. These tournaments can be very grinding if, like me, you forgot to change the match length, so definitely put that on the lowest setting. There's also the option to play with the youth players at full potential or their current overall. This is a personal preference thing, obviously, but in my own opinion, I see no value in playing with full potential, as it's a false representation of the player's actual ability. I also recommend utilizing development plans to accelerate player growth. These plans target specific positional attributes, whereas balance, the default setting, focuses on well-roundedness. Now, ideally, you want to keep these youth players in the academy for as long as possible. In there, they receive a constant and steady growth with no external factors. Just make sure to keep an eye out for inbox messages of players requesting to be moved into the first team, because if they don't get promoted after that message, they will leave your club completely and no longer exist in the save. Once in the first team, they are susceptible to a thing called dynamic potential, which has never really worked properly since its implementation. Especially in the lower leagues, this feature is a potential killer, so I strongly recommend getting them loaned out as soon as possible. Loaning is just a great tool in general. It can help a player get back on the right track by suddenly bumping the overall, and it can also be used to quickly improve a player's potential, as every recall ends up modifying the player's ceiling ever so slightly. Loaning also stops the player from becoming unhappy at the lack of playing time, which is always a bonus. A great example of the damage dynamic potential can cause happened to our test player. Heading into Season 4, Enzo Antunes was already putting up solid numbers for the first team in an otherwise neglected Lyon side. His performances should have either kept his potential the same or given him a slight boost. Instead, he dropped all the way down to 75 potential, which we began to claw back with the loan method. You can tell when you've performed this correctly by the valuation of the player increasing after recall. There's also a really handy player status for high potential youngsters that'll change accordingly. At 80 to 84 potential, under 21s will have showing great potential. At 85 to 89, that changes to an exciting prospect, with potential to be special being 90 and above. Always keep an eye out for these statuses. They come in very useful, not only for your academy, but for external signings too. The hiring of first team coaches will also drastically change your rate of development, but much like dynamic potential, this is not balanced correctly. In the lower leagues, you're given less coaching slots to begin with, and therefore can't achieve the desirable levels that the game suggests. A tip here is to sign coaches in the most demanding areas. For instance, if you have tons of midfielders but not that many goalkeepers, there's no point wasting the slot on a goalkeeping coach. Due to the various bugs and flaws with FC 26, my final bit of advice is about getting this game on PC and not console. If you can run or can afford to buy something capable, do so. Career Mode has a dedicated modding community that will clean up all the untidy, unfinished work by EA programmers. It's also a great way to spice up your save with more customization options. We're still awaiting the release of tools for FC 26, so before committing to any big PC purchases, please check up on the development of any third-party programs. I suggest looking at Aranak 2's live editor and the database editor RDBM. Oh, and heads up, if you do plan on modding your save, store a backup before messing with it. It's a healthy habit to get into, and I'm not going to be held accountable for you corrupting your save, okay? If you're stuck on console, there's no need to panic. Enzo Antunes' development to 92 overall is a great example of what can still be achieved. It might feel a bit cheaty, a bit wrong to abuse the loan system in such a way, but in my eyes, this is a way to either reclaim lost potential that was wrongfully taken away in the first place, or it can be used to reward hard-working, low-potential players that are far better than the game gives them credit for. At the end of the day, Career Mode is a single-player experience, and your fun is all that matters. Every time I execute the loan boost, I imagine the recall money going towards a personal personal trainer, for instance. That way it feels as though you're investing into the player's future rather than taking advantage of some game mechanics. And with all that out the way, you should now be ready to transform your club into a Wonder Kid factory. If you have any additional questions, please be sure to post them in the comments section. Try and help each other out as much as possible, and I'm sure lovely members of my community will keep popping in to assist you guys. Good luck on your scouting missions, and please tell me about the players you found using this guide. Take care, everyone. See you later.